Coming up on the Sairaj Kamath Show.
Indus Creed is still very much is still my main thoroughfare and the stuff that I love to do. But this solo project has become something it was kind of like something I could not ignore anymore. Elon Musk is the world's first trillionaire. Pardon my language, but frankly, who gives a fuck? I don't. For me, your money only matters to me personally if I can see what you're doing with it that is benefiting a larger number of beings. I think I'm a hippie. I'm a hippie born at the wrong time. When I went and saw, I was about 13 years old when I went and saw Woodstock the movie, and I'm watching that and I'm thinking, man, I want to be there. I want to be with those hippies. I want to be drenched in the rain. Since about 2019 or 2018, not 19, 2018, I went through a real dry spell. I didn't want to pick up my guitar and write songs. The spark seemed to have gone that to write new material. And I think it was Socrates who said, know thyself. And I think that's the most important thing for every individual on this planet is to know and discover the truth of oneself.
Hello and welcome to the Sairaj Kamath Show, where we have in-depth conversations with amazing independent musicians and uncover the incredible stories behind their music. And folks, I am very excited because my guest for today is an absolute legend and trailblazer in Indian independent music. And he is none other than Uday Benegal. Uday's journey started all the way back in the 1980s when he joined the pioneering rock band Rock Machine and electrified stages in India and abroad. However, it wouldn't be until the 1990s when Uday and the band would transform into Indus Creed, one of the godfathers of Indian rock music and independent music at large, who along with folks like Parikrama and Indian Ocean would pave the way for future generations of independent artists to make a name for themselves in India with independent original music. With all of that under his belt, as well as defining commercial work in Indian films, advertising, and mentoring young artists, you would think that Uday has truly done it all in music until now. But in this podcast, Uday is in a brand new avatar as a solo artist, releasing an EP titled Human Bee under his own name for the very first time in his career this year. Human Bee is a beautiful and raw collection of songs advocating for peace, kindness, and emotional sincerity in a world that currently seems to be opposed to all of this. And we talked about all of this and so much more from Uday's career and the world around us. But folks, brace yourselves because we talked so much about all of these things that I've had to split this conversation into two parts. That's right, this is only part one of my conversation with Uday Benegal, and part two is going to come out very soon. So if you like this conversation, then please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and press the hype button if you're on YouTube, and follow the podcast and rate the podcast on any other platform of your choice that you're listening to right now. I promise you, every little bit helps in me bringing you such amazing conversations like these. So, without further ado, here's me with Uday Benegal. Uday, welcome to the podcast. I am so honored and excited to have you here. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. And speaking from the heart, I have to say, one of the many reasons I'm excited to have you on the show is because speaking personally, growing up with rock and metal, I actually got into rock music a period of after you accomplished a lot of what you've accomplished. Just like for context, I got into this music in 2008, but I started going to independent shows only at around 2014, which is like relatively later. But even back then, I remember people telling me like, hey, there were these legendary bands like, Indus Creed, Zero, Parikrama, Indian Ocean, etc. And it seems like, a generation away from me that accomplished so many great things, but which I was too young to start with and understand. So, just for that reason, this conversation is extra special to me. I hope you know that.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
So let's start off with the shows that you recently did to promote your new solo EP,
Mhm.
Human Bee. So you did shows in Mumbai and Bangalore. The Bangalore one, which I attended and was awesome and very special to me. So how did you like those shows?
They were both great experiences for me. Well, fundamentally because this is the first time I'm taking out. I've created this set. The EP, as you mentioned, Human Bee. So that's a whole new direction for me, and I would like to stress that this direction is this path runs alongside my Indus Creed path because Indus Creed is still very much it's still my main thoroughfare and the stuff that I love to do. But this solo project has become something it was kind of like something I could not ignore anymore. It was a feeling and urging from within that kind of prodded me into going down this direction as a parallel path to Indus Creed. And what happened with the EP launch in Bombay, which is really great, at a lovely venue called G5A, near Mahalakshmi, and that was the full band. So it's Arya Nanji on acoustic guitar and voice, Sharad Rao electric guitar and voice, Zion Matthew keyboards and vocals, Mitch Murray on drums, and Adil Karwa on bass guitar. So it was a full six-piece band, five of them and myself. And it was wonderful just crafting it out because the first time we played together, played this material, threw in a bunch of covers as well. But we're adding covers to it that are relevant to the sound, relevant to the energy, relevant to the vibe that I'm trying to create. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what I mean about the vibe that I'm trying to create with these shows. I don't expect it's going to be easy because the kind of world we live in doesn't make it accessible for forms of music that are not out there in your face, all guns blazing, all lights flashing and exploding, all pyrotechnics going at one time. But I want to create an alternative to that kind of over excitable, over dramatic, overproduced kind of shows. Nothing wrong with them. I use the word over only in terms of an extremely hyped up version of entertainment that is being marketed these days in the world, especially in live shows. And I want to create an alternative to that for people who are looking for something that's much more mellow and much more relaxed. So the Bombay gig with all six of us rather, was the first one of that. The Bangalore gig, which you attended, was a stripped down version. So we kept the bass and drums out of it only, and the only reason for this was logistics and finance. It's a very small event called Raw and Real at the Allianz Française, which happens once a month in Bangalore. And they invited me to be a part of this, and I could do it only in this four-piece setup, which is without bass and drums. Arya, Sharad, Zain, and myself. So it is just guitars, keyboards, little percussion, and all four of us singing. So very thick harmonies and stuff. It wasn't just for this show that I created this stripped down four-piece setup. It was also to create this as an alternative to the full band setup at times when the stage is small, the budgets are lower, because I don't want to stop the music. And I don't want to stop this music. And this music for me is really trying to find a way to counter, or at least do my little bit. I'm just a drop in the ocean of whatever's taking place in the world. But in my little drop, I want to do the best I can in terms of creating an environment, even if it's for an hour, hour and a half, but hopefully something that will linger longer than that, and that people can take home. A feeling of coming back to our own inner core essence, our true self. Because I think we've basically evolved into a species that today is being distracted very nefariously by a small group, I would say. When I say small, I just mean in terms of in the larger context of human population, but a smaller controlling group that is distracting human beings, causing us to remain divided, to be divided and remain divided, that basically engineers and encourages conflict and controversy and discord. It's the easiest way to control people. I mean, we as Indians have experienced it through what over 100 years of British rule. And all of us learned in school that the method that they employed, very effective, very brilliant, but very underhanded, the policy of divide and rule. So Indians are very familiar with the policy of divide and rule because that's what the British imposed upon this nation for so many years. Now we are experiencing it in in much vaster global context. It's happening within our country still. The colonial masters may have gone, but the ones who are in authority, I don't call them leaders. I don't call them leaders at all. I just call them people in authority because we've given them the authority and people in office, not people in power, but people in office, people in government, not people in rule, not a ruling party, but a governing party. We need to change our language also because when we say things like ruling party or people in power or stuff like that, we're actually giving our power away inadvertently, subconsciously. And we should change our language. So a lot of this for me is coming back to the idea of we as human beings, each of us, is a sovereign uh, is a sovereign individual, an expression. I'm going to get a little woo here, but an expression of the divine. People use the word God, people use the word consciousness, people use the word universe, however, whatever term you use to define. If you believe, in fact, that we're all part of this vast whole, that we're all coming from the same place, really, and we're expressions of that one consciousness, we are being taught by a small group of people to fight amongst each other because they can control us more easily. So for me, sorry, I know it's a really long answer to your question, but for me, the music is about bringing each of us back to our spot of centeredness so that we are one with ourselves. The moment we are one with ourselves, we will realize automatically how completely ridiculous and self-defeating this whole principle and this whole purpose of conflict with others, claiming this is mine and I have bought this and this belongs to me and this goes back. It's become such a chaotic and distracting world, not to mention a cruel world. And this is something I really want to address with the music, is we need to bring kindness back because we've reached levels of depravity and cruelty in this world today that I think is blowing all our minds. I don't think any of us is prepared for it, and I don't think any of us know what to do with it.
Okay, Uday, uh, I agree with all of this, but this is a bit scary to me right now because I'm not kidding you right now. A lot of what you just said, I put in my notes for this interview. Like what I was about to ask about, what I was about to say about the EP was that what I liked about it the most is that the emotions and values that you advocate for, like kindness, emotional openness, empathy, they by themselves are basic human emotions, but they seem revolutionary in a world that is governed by senselessness and cruelty. And not just cruelty, performative cruelty, like people actually taking pleasure out of being mean to others. That is what I appreciate most about it. So everything that you just said, it feels like we are like simpatico over here, you know?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, exactly how you've described it is the way I'm seeing it as well. And I think we're each of us individually and collectively, starting with us as individuals, growing it into our neighbors in the building, of course, our family and our friends and our neighbors and our street and our vaster community. We just have to keep growing that energy until it becomes one universal thing of saying, we may be individualized, we may be individuated, but we know that we are part of the whole, and we know that if my essence, if in my most basic and most ordinary form, I am looking for simplicity in life of being kind to one another, helping one another, being patient with one another, being generous with one another, this is the virus that can affect the entire world in the most beautiful way and transform this world and take us back to our essential creation. I believe each of us is created. Look at a baby. A baby is just filled with love and wonder, right? And acceptance and admiration. A baby doesn't look at skin color. A baby doesn't look at whether you've cut your hair or grown your beard or become fat or grown too thin. A baby doesn't respond to anything other than with love, with joy, with fun, with curiosity. And every single one of us was a baby. Every single one of us was that being that over time and over societal pressures and influences, and whether it's friends and family, whether it's teachers, whether it's us absorbing stuff that we get from through the internet and through social media. I have nothing against the internet and social media, but it's I mean it's territory. When you're walking into that territory, walk into that territory with your eyes open and your ears wide open. Know where you're getting your information from. And hold your fundamental being intact. That's the most important thing. Know yourself. I think it was Socrates who said, "Know thyself." And I think that's the most important thing for every individual on this planet is to know and discover the truth of oneself. Because when we see the truth of oneself, if there are things about oneself that we see that we don't like, for example, if we've fallen into a state of selfishness and stuff, and we're able to see that within ourselves, the moment you can see it, you can correct it. But I think what the deeper we go and the deeper and the deeper we go and we pull out these layers of armor, these layers of that we've created the suit of armor ostensibly to protect ourselves from other dangerous elements, and put dangerous in quotes because everyone's suffering from the same fears. We take off that suit of armor and we start to trust one another. We trust ourselves first. And we will see a world completely transformed because we will be kind. We are fundamentally kind. We are fundamentally good, beautiful beings.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And in my opinion, it's just because we are misled not only by those larger forces, but the particular ecosystem that we are in, which is so dependent on social media and digital dependency, and especially like getting attention and getting clout. And when you put that into the equation, what attracts the most attention? Negativity. And so people, whether by their own decisions or whether they don't know any better, it seems like we are tapping into the worst versions of ourselves just to get some sense of what we may call popularity or clout.
Right. Or success, again in quotes, or status. We're so obsessed with status. Look at the world today. I mean, what is the news all about? A friend sent me an article yesterday. Elon Musk is the world's first trillionaire. Pardon my language, but frankly, who gives a fuck? I don't care what. For me, your money only matters to me personally if I can see what you're doing with it that is benefiting a larger number of beings, people, animals, nature, the planet, whatever it is. But whether you're a trillionaire or a multi-billionaire, I don't really care. It's what you hold in your bank account. And people use the word wealth. I was taught by some stuff that I read some time ago to redefine the version of the meaning, the translation of wealth. It has been co-opted to mean the amount of money that you have, the stocks that your valuation, so to speak. Peculiar in a world where companies that are bleeding money are valued at some insane amounts. There's something very, very wrong with this version of capitalism that we're practicing in the world today. And for me, wealth is firstly your health, your own inner state of being, your health, your physical health, your emotional health, very, very important, your emotional health, your mental health in terms of your intellectual abilities as well, but your emotional health because that is determined by the relationships that you have. Relationships you have with your partner, with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your business associates, with the community at large. There is your health first. There is the relationships you have. That is very much a part of your wealth. The support that you have. How many people are there who truly love you for who you are? That is part of your wealth and your abundance. How much access do you have to roti, kapra, makan? Just food and shelter and education and these very simple basics. That for me is wealth. Sure, money is a part of it as well because money is an enabler for us to be able to go through our life with the least amount of hardship. I won't even talk about inconvenience. Let's talk about with the absence of hardship is what is the best we can hope for. Inconvenience will be there in one's life, but hardship we don't need. Suffering we can do without. Money is a great enabler to overcome those hurdles. What do you need $1 trillion for if you're not going to use it to help other people who really could do with it? Look at the world we're in. So many people are barely able to feed their families or give their families, their children a proper education. And there are people sitting with insane amounts of digits in their computerized bank balances, bank accounts, who are controlling the way policy is being created in terms of land conversions, in terms of immigration issues, in terms of starting wars and buying and selling weapons, in terms of the kind of education that they're providing to the people and charging them, putting them into debt for years and years, a kind of housing situation we've been put into where you're put into debt for years and years. I'm sorry, but humanity doesn't deserve any of this, and it's time we took it back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a return of the Gilded Age, like some, 100, 200 years ago, where, these people at the top controlled so much wealth, and yet they're trying to convince the rest of us like some other nebulous group is the problem and not just them. It's all distraction tactics.
Always, always, and it's the same techniques. I don't know if you've been aware of this, Sairaj, but just watch regularly. You probably have latched on to this already. And I think so many people have latched on and are latching on to this. They're trying to sell the same narrative today as they did 20 years ago, as they did 20 years prior, because it worked then. But I think what is happening is there is an awakening in the world, and I know the term awakening is used usually in I'll go back into woo-woo world again. Woo world is part of my ecosystem. I love the woo world because there's so much beauty in there. I love the magic of life, really. Logic and magic, the marriage of the two, left brain and right brain, is what we should really be looking for. Complete integration. And uh, in the world today, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought over there. We were.
No, no, please, please. This is about, candid, freewheeling conversations. Wherever this conversation is going to go, I'm all for it. Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah. So we were on what were we talking about? I just lost a little bit of my train of thought there.
No, I talked about, how the people at the top are using distraction tactics on us, pointing at
Absolutely.
others.
Very much so. So the thing is, these you're right about the education that they're selling us, the debt they're putting us into. These are all forms of control, right? And I'm seeing more and more people waking up. So the awakening I'm seeing is yes, very much the woo-woo awakening, which is us awakening to our own consciousness. But there is also very much a physical external awakening happening that people are saying, I'm sorry, but what you have sold us all these years in terms of this is what you must need to do in order to be happy. We've all grown up with that, right? You must go to a certain kind of school, you must go to a certain kind of university, you need to get certain kinds of marks, and so you can get certain kinds of degrees, so you can get particular kinds of jobs because that will make you so much money and then you will be happy. And yes, yet we live in a world where CEOs are miserable. Come on, I'm not buying I whatever your social media photographs or your PR pictures are putting out there. People who are rich are not necessarily happy. People who have lots of money, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with money. I've got no problem with money. It's about like anything, how much of it are you fixated on or obsessed with that it takes over the desire for that or the feeling of lack towards that, whether it's towards food, whether it's towards friendship, whether it's towards money. If that feeling of lack has got you so fixated that you have to keep collecting it, even though you've got more than you actually need in order to be more than just comfortable, much more than just comfortable. If you are still fixated on that continual cash grab as much as you can, which is what we're seeing the world, and we see the richer, it's almost like the richer people get, the it seems to me like they seem to have an even greater sense of lack because they can't stop themselves. Because when you've got a million, you've got a million to lose. You don't just have a million. You have a million that you're afraid of losing. When you've got a billion, think of how much more afraid you are because you've got a billion worth that you are afraid of losing. And I find that collecting things, on the one hand, while it can be really nice to have stuff, it also brings with it the territory that comes with it is the fear of losing that because the attachment starts to take hold of us. And I think this is the awakening that people are seeing that all the stories that were being sold. Social media, I think, is a wonderful thing as a tool, just as the internet is wonderful as a tool or as a universe in which you can go and glean information. Just as I think AI has incredible potential as a tool to do incredible, wonderfully beneficial things for human beings. It's the human being that we have to watch out for because it's the person wielding the tool, the one brandishing the tool, that really is one who can either do wonderful things with it or can do extremely destructive things with it. And I think people are waking up to this because people are waking up and saying, I'm sorry, done everything that you said I should do in order to be happy, and yet I feel like a bit of a slave. A corporate slave, yeah, it's not slavery in the old sense of the term. You are selling me, you are giving me huge amounts of money, but my life belongs to you for that money. So I'm like an indentured servant almost. I've got to work these ridiculous hours. I've got to be available so many hours a week to be considered productive. I'm driving my Porsche or my BMW. I've got my Rolex. I've got all kinds of things, and yet somehow things seem to feel a bit empty for me. Life doesn't seem to be fulfilling, and that's for the ones who have it. For the ones who don't have it, who are being sold the story on this is what you must aspire for, otherwise you will be miserable, are living in a state of lack and misery. So it's up to us individually. Really, it is up to us one by one to rediscover our true selves, our true nature, our true understanding of ourselves, and say, man, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me. There's very little. If there's things wrong with my life, I will fix them because they're in my control and they're in my power to do it. And if things are not going well with my life, I will change it. I will change my perspective of how I see the world. I will change the way I deal with other people. I will change my relationship to money, to things, to the earth, and I can improve my life. But first, I have to know myself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm fascinated to know this now after everything we've just discussed. For anyone who's not familiar with your catalog, talking about advocating for and inspiring social change is not something new that you are doing in your music, not by any means. If
Right.
anyone goes to even the first Rock Machine album, there are songs in there that advocate for social issues. Now, so I'm just curious, where does your spirit and your fire to advocate for social change and introspection through music come from? Did it come from the artists you listen to, your upbringing? What is it?
Well, my upbringing very much played a role in the sense that my parents were both extremely liberal, hands-off, live your life. Sure, they were involved in my life and my brother's life. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, who was actually instrumental in a lot of the stuff, my music, because I was still in school when he was in college, and Vijay used to bring home these rock albums, and that transformed my life. But yes, family-wise, liberal, but my parents are not activists in any sense. But I guess a worldview that was very expansive thanks to the amount of books that my father had in the home and the encouragement to read, or rather, it was there. So I went to the bookshelf and I read the books. And my dad had a very extensive and very expansive taste in literature and books and stuff and subjects. My mother was a very warm, very loving, and I think very deep spiritual person, but not in an outward sense. She just contained that energy. So that was the exposure at home. But in terms of being, well, I was encouraged to think for myself, very, very importantly. So I would sit, and my mother was a wonderful listener, and I would sit and pour my heart out on, especially through my adolescent years, because adolescence is when you have this sense of idealism of the world and what's going wrong with the world. And I very much had my view of it, and I would pour my heart out to my mother, why are things like this and why are things like that, and things could be like this and things could be like that. And my mom would patiently hear me out, and allow me to come to my own conclusions. But a lot of it was to do with the music. When my brother brought home the Who album called Rafinha, it transformed my life, and then brought home albums like before I even saw the movie. He brought home the album, the triple album of Woodstock, the original Woodstock, the 1969 Woodstock Festival. And so growing up with the music of Led Zeppelin, The Who, um, uh, Deep Purple, and Bob Dylan, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and Neil Young. It was a mix of just fantastic, in your face, middle finger to the establishment rock and roll, but imbued within all of that was very much messages of freedom, of individuality in not just in terms of I'm going to get out there and do things for myself in a selfish way. Individuality in that I have a sense of freedom because Woodstock was really all about that, right? I have a sense of freedom, but I live for the greater good of all. So it's about freedom and about free love. But that free love includes, I mentioned this with one of the songs that I've taken from, which I put into the set. It's a song written by Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, called Love the One You're With. And Love the One You're With is a hippie song. It's really actually more about, hey man, if you're on your own and there's a girl sitting next to you or a boy, as the case may be, and you only want to do, love the one you're with. And it's a sweet song, but it's got in there that free hippie love message, which could or may not involve a physical relationship with that person. And that's the beauty of the song. It's a really sweet song. I brought the song into the set because I want to expand the message more. Love the one you're with for me is love thy neighbor in the Jesus sense of the term. And I use Jesus as the being. I'm not getting into the religious side of things. I'm not a religious person at all. But I believe that all religions at their core have the same message of love, of divine love that each of us contains within ourselves. So whether you want to look at it from a religious lens, you want to look at it from a spiritual or a consciousness lens, or you want to look at it from an atheistic moral sensitivity, and just from out of your own conscience, you'll still come to the same conclusion about the fact that being kind to the person next to you, being loving to the people around you, being generous to your community lies all throughout the board, whether religious, non-religious, atheist or not. If you are ascribing to possessing a conscience and having a moral compass within yourself. And so for me, all the music I'm bringing in with this is, I know it sounds all very hippie, but I think I think I'm a hippie born at the wrong time. When I went and saw, I was about 13 years old when I went and saw Woodstock the movie, and I went by myself. I jumped onto a bus in Bombay. I heard it was playing at Eros Cinema at Churchgate, and at like some 9:30 in the morning, and I jumped onto the bus. I went to see it because I'd heard so much about this movie. I knew the album start to finish because I had that album, and I knew every single announcement, every bit of feedback that played through because the record had all of those things. So when I saw the movie, I'm now associating with what I know by heart, orally, auditorily. And I'm now seeing the people who've created that music, the people who are now making the announcements and stuff. And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, man, I'm sitting out here in a movie theater in when I was 13, so that would have been around 1980 or so. Uh, in 1980, and I want to be there. I want to be with those hippies. I want to be drenched in the rain. I want to be singing and chanting for no rain so the music can continue. I want to watch Santana playing Soul Sacrifice and The Who playing See Me, Feel Me, and Joe Cocker doing the most incredible rendition of With a Little Help for Your Friends by the Beatles. And all of that. And for me, that free love hippie thing, I think it stayed within me right throughout. And it's interesting because at this point of time in my life, uh, yeah, I've always been affected by the world in that sense because I guess my disappointment and my dissatisfaction with humanity comes from my belief and my expectations and my understanding of the potential somewhere within myself. I'm not saying I'm any kind of evolved human being who can see it and knows it. I think each of us has this within ourselves that we know the potential of every human being to be incredible, and yet, for some reason, we choose to be otherwise. We choose to be the opposite. So, for me, looking at the world and seeing the world going in a direction, in a bit of in a downward spiral, and look at where we are today. We seem to be almost at the bottom, and I use the word almost with disappointment because I want us to be at the bottom. I want us to be at rock bottom because, as they say, when you're at the bottom, the only way to go is up. But for some reason, we still seem to be heading in a downward spiral, and I'm waiting to hit the bottom so that we start to climb again. That Shiv Shakti hits us, that Shiva the destroyer brings us to our knees, so that we start to build afresh again. Because only when systems have been brought to their collapse can we build anew. We're trying to reform a system that is so rotten to the core, systems that are so rotten to the core that there's no way to fix it. You're putting band-aid on a huge gash gaping wound. It's not going to work. What you need to do is get down to basics and start afresh. And so for me, the only way now how to express it is in song. So I look at the world, I process what I see, and I say my bit. I speak my truth in a sense. Some people want to hear it, some people don't want to hear it, and that's absolutely fine. That's everybody's individual free will. And as somebody who I was speaking to recently said, it's kind of like music becomes the tool or the messenger, or rather the vehicle to carry a message that may not be as acceptable, say in spoken form, because when you speak it, it could sound like a lecture. It could sound like an instruction to somebody who's reluctant to visit it. Things should be like this, in a serious face. Things should be like this. Humanity's all gone wrong. We should change the way we live. We have become so selfish. It's a downer. And yet, if you can take those same messages and put them in harmony with a rhythm that gets someone to move, you've already softened someone up to be able to accept a message that they wouldn't otherwise accept because they'd find it too instructive. But the song, I mean, Bob Dylan is a great example of that, of amongst so many great songwriters, Paul Simon and Neil Young, and even today, so many incredible writers who are getting down and putting down the word and saying, "Yeah, I know it's difficult to grasp these messages and a little tough too from people who are lecturing you. Here's a nice song. If you like the song, it'll just make you it'll soften you up and give you the opportunity to receive the wisdom of those words if you want to, if you choose to." And I find that for me is the real beauty of music, is it just because it becomes a way to convey a message to a person who at that point makes the choice of whether you want to receive it or not, but in a really lovely form. And by lovely form, it could be as something as simple as a lilting harmony by James Taylor or Joni Mitchell to a smash out, stram out song by Meshuggah or Bhayanak Moth, whatever it is, from folk music to metal to everything in between. Music is an incredible deliverer, vehicle, way, vibration to convey the most beautiful and essential truths.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think your solo EP embodies that completely. In fact, the way I would describe it to myself personally is the revolutionary spirit of the 60s and 70s expressed through the medium of like Neil Young's music, but your voice sounds a little bit like Phil Collins. I mean, that's what it sounds to me actually. That's what it sounded to me at the show
Yeah.
actually.
I love Phil Collins. I love Neil Young. I love them all.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm just curious. After everything you've achieved, how is it that we got your first solo EP so late into your career? Did you ever think of making something like this way back when, or like earlier in your career?
It's strange, but I've always, for some reason, and I have no explanation for this. This is just purely my own uh, the hurdle I presented to myself, but it was a hurdle I needed through whatever means and through whatever span of time to overcome. But all through the years, I've been with different bands, but each of those bands, I mean, I did not start Rock Machine, which became Indus Creed. I joined a year after it was formed. So I was not a founding member of Rock Machine, the beginning of Indus Creed. But I've started bands after that. I had a band called Arms for Shanti, which played in the US, which my bandmate from Rock Machine Industry, Jayesh Gandhi, and I moved to the US and started this band. I came back to India. I started a band called Whirling Kalapas. And so I've done these little things. I've had these things, but even though I've started them and I've kind of shaped them and been at the forefront of where they should go, so in terms of the direction, very much collaborative efforts, all of them. Amsu Shanti, Whirling Kalapas, very much collaborative. But within that collaboration, it was really me. I had a vision of where I wanted to take each of those bands. And I was the principal songwriter for, if not the only songwriter for many of those bands. So, and I will come down to the fact that I found it, for some reason, I thought it would be egotistical of me to put my music out as myself. So I'd create these bands. I almost gave the new project, not almost, but in the early stages of it, I was thinking of putting it out as a not as a band, but giving it another name, giving it another title. Just like I had Arms for Shanti, giving it another title, not my name. And at some point, I don't know, in the last couple of years, so I was let me preface this a little bit also by saying that since about 2019 or 2018, not 19, 2018, I went through a real dry spell. I didn't want to pick up my guitar and write songs. I would pick up my guitar just to develop the calluses on my fingertips because an Indus Creed concert would be coming up and I didn't want to be uncomfortable on stage. So a couple of weeks before, I'd pick up the guitar at home and just play so that it wouldn't be uncomfortable when I played on stage. But I wasn't picking up the guitar out of any sense of joy or any sense of creativity. I wasn't getting that. The spark seemed to have gone that to write new material. And up to that point, I hadn't even put out anything on my own. By the end of 2024, going into 25, something within me started to shift, and I didn't understand it. And I realized I didn't question it because there was an urge to pick up the guitar, and I had a couple of ideas. And I said, okay, I mean, this is an unusual feeling for me because it's been 7 years now that I've been really suffering a drought. Let me see where this goes. And that started with Human Bee. I mean, the first idea that I came to. There was another idea. So a song Man Overboard actually was an idea that was in cold storage since 2018 that I revived later because the opportunity came about to find some place to put that song on. But Human Bee became this new idea that came to me, and then Afar was something that I realized was these are both songs on the EP that was also stirring somewhere within my consciousness prior to that, but I hadn't really paid enough attention to it. And just the act of picking up the guitar brought me to it. And that's when I realized I said, you know what, these are coming from a very personal place, even though they're very universal, and I want them. I always want my songs to be universal. I say this to people who ask me about my songs. I don't explain my songs because even if a song is started from a personal experience, anecdote, thought, whatever it is, I try and write the words in a way that universalizes it because I don't want these songs to be about me. I want these songs to be about whoever's listening to it if they connect with it in that kind of way. If it connects in a way that they're able to personalize it for themselves, if there have been experiences in their lives that have led them to those emotions. And I maintain that even though all of us as human beings are separated by birth, by our bodies, by our culture, by language, by our experiences, by our formative experiences through our early years, and by our influences by the culture of the nation and the city that we reside in, all of those things. What unites us all across the board as human beings across this planet, whether you're in uh, Nauru in the Pacific, or whether you're in Patagonia in Argentina, or somewhere in Sweden, or deep in the heartland of India somewhere, we all have the same emotions. We all have anger, we all have love, we all have fear, we all have, the emotions are the same. The bank of emotions unites humanity in terms of what is the commonality that we all have. So for me, I try and put the songs and put them into a context where the emotion becomes the driving energy behind the song. There is the music, there is the rhythm, and there are the words. So the words can be the ones that lead you. The words I have to be most careful with, because the words are the ones that can take you into my own personal experience, or they can be open enough to allow for you to make it your part, connect to a personal experience that you had. So that's what I try and do these songs. And so I guess to answer your question, I felt for the first time last year that yes, maybe I don't think it would be an egotistical thing to just put them out as my name, Uday Benegal, and put them out because I mean that's where it's coming from. So that's why it took so long. The music has been coming. The music has been coming whether through Rock Machine, Indus Creed, Arms for Shanti, Whirling Kalapas. The music has been coming. But I haven't taken ownership of it to the extent that I have with this EP, I think, because now it's my name on it. Uh, the bouquets and the bricks are both for me. So you can give me flowers or you can throw stones at me. They're all mine.
No, I'm sure it's going to be flowers all throughout. But wow, I mean, so this EP is basically you breaking out of a 7 year dry spell and, like getting over that tussling with your ego about like whether to like really put my name into this. I mean, that's amazing, man.
I've had to have a lot of conversations with myself to figure out to understand my own motivations, my own reluctance towards certain things, my own hurdles and my own solutions. So yeah, it's been a really really interesting experience. But eventually, what it is for me, and to come back to the a question, you had sort of alluded to this in the beginning towards in terms of the songs. These are all basically expressions of my understanding of the world today and how I think that we can all just come together, get together, and make it simple again. Make it simple, have fun, experience joy, experience the beauty of life, not at the cost of anyone else. Why can't, for example, why can't I know this goes against the fundamental principles of sports as they're practiced today. I'll start by saying I'm not a big sports fan. I think sports are wonderful. I've just never been very athletic and stuff. And I think it's great that people with these incredible skills play against each other. But what if playing against each other wasn't for the glory, for the, oh man, I am the best in the world and I have the cup and I have the endorsements. Pardon my ham acting, but I'm trying to dramatize it because there is this thirst for, I want money, I want the cup, I want the glory, I want all of that stuff. How about I'm playing it because I love playing football or I love playing cricket and I really enjoy it every time I get on the field and I use my body and I use my skills and I use my intellect and I use my calculation, my motor skills and in within myself calculating the speed of the wind and the blow of the wind and I can bowl to that batsman so I can get him out and but I can equally appreciate when I do that, that batsman whacks the ball that I just bowled all with I mean everything that I could muster and responded beautifully. And if I can appreciate that without saying, oh, oh shit, man, I lost the match, shit, it's over, and I'm crying, weeping tears. I'm saying that if we can get to a state of a certain degree of equanimity where we're be able to, I'm not dissing sports here at all. But I'd like to use, and I'm not saying music is better than sports. I'm not at all. They're all very different things. But if we can adopt the same thing of music, just as we're all playing together, imagine a sports team is like a band. And they are. They're all playing together in cohesion. They're all working towards each other. Now, Using music as an example here, I've kind of always been looked askance at the whole battle of the bands thing. You know, musicians competing against each other makes no sense to me. I will put my confession here that I have judged many of those shows, but I've judged those battles out of very selfish motive. Either I'm getting paid well for it because it's a painful process for me, not painful because I have to hear the bands, but painful because I don't really see one band being pitted against another as a healthy thing. Or you take me to a lovely location. If you take me out somewhere to Nagaland and whatnot, I've got to judge a band over there. I'm in Nagaland in the hills and I'm eating lovely food and stuff, and I'll do it for that. But just as I see a battle of the bands as I don't understand it, I would say even in sports, imagine if we played. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a winner or a loser in the game, but what if the spirit of sportsmanship, and I'm using this only as a metaphor for life itself, of competition, that what if competition was your success is my success because your success is our success, that anyone who does well is upping the level of that game, of the music, of the practice, in the corporate practice. You're upping the level, and when I say upping the level, I'm not talking necessarily in terms of profit. I'm talking in terms of creating a better product, creating a better service, creating a better facility, something that people can access, and it's an improvement on the last one that there was. Every time someone does this, sure, you get some profit from it. It benefits all. If we can apply this to every aspect of our life, in sports, where we celebrate the losers and the winners, in music, where we celebrate every band that's up on stage that's gone, or artist that's gone and shared their music with the world, or with companies who are creating better products. And I mean, by better products, I don't mean necessarily products that are only delivering a larger value to the shares and benefiting shareholders and investors. I'm talking something that creates better value in this world itself for all beings to avail of. And if it's got profit built into that, even better, then everyone is thriving, right? What is stopping us from creating this world? That for me. Sorry, I know I get into these tangents of idealism and utopianism, but when people say you're an idealist or that's too utopian, I'm saying that's the whole idea. Why are we born on this planet if not to experience the ideals of what this planet can give us? And look at what this planet gives us. We are blessed with beautiful, beautiful abundance of all things. Sorry, I'm going to keep going. So
Uday, you know what? There is no need to apologize like this. One of the things that I want to, percolate and, encourage in my show is artists talking so openly and frankly about what they believe in and what they value like you do. So don't worry about it, first of all. But even so, let's get back to the EP.
of
Okay.
course.
So one of the songs in the EP that I'm sure a lot of your that a lot of your longtime fans are enjoying right now is the reworking of Fireflies. So what made you pick that song to reimagine as opposed to any other song from your career?
There's actually a very simple answer to that. So Fireflies, excuse me, while Fireflies is definitely known in the Indus Creed version of it, which has done really well and has done really well for us, and we love playing it, and I still love playing it on stage. It's really, and we love the way it's turned out and the way Tim Palmer mixed the song for us on the Evolve album. So it is a very satisfying experience. But Fireflies was written first actually as a simple acoustic song. It was just on an acoustic guitar, which I had played a couple of times with this little trio I had called Whirling Kalapas, which included Mahesh Danaiker, who is the guitar player with Indus Creed, and another friend of ours, Sankar Shankini, who plays mandolin, violin, guitar, all kinds of things. And Shanky, we call him Shanky, would play mandolin on that. Mahesh and I would play acoustic guitar, and we little simple harmonies. It was brought into the Indus Creed repertoire when Zubin heard it, and we were putting Evolve together, and he's saying, "Man, this song would sound really nice, I think, with Indus Creed as well." And we had to rework the version to bring it into that Indus Creed energy. The groove changed a bit, the whole approach changed a bit and stuff. But at its heart, in its original form, it was this acoustic song. And every now and then, I live a fairly secluded life. I don't go out much and stuff, but I do find myself in someone's living room, friends' living rooms, every once in a way. And every once in a while, one of them will say, if there's a guitar handy, come on, play us a song and stuff. And I don't like to do this whole singing at parties, and my friends know it. So they'll ask me for one or two tunes. And what would be asked for, what would be requested quite often was Fireflies. And when I would play Fireflies, especially for the ones who had never heard the song before, it was not uncommon for me to get the reaction, where can we get the song? And I said, it's on all the streaming platforms, and just look it up. Indus Creed version is there. Now, what happened 2 years ago or a year and a half ago in Chandigarh was the culmination of what had happened a few times before that. And my friend's daughter's boyfriend, who'd never heard the song, my friend knew Fireflies very well, the Indus Creed version, and her daughter knew the version as well, or their daughter knew the version as well, because the daughter was in the movie Fireflies, in which uh, it's an independent film in which the song features. And that daughter's boyfriend never heard the song before. And they say, come on, do they play us a song? So I played Fireflies in their living room in Chandigarh. And so the boy, Ranveer, he said, man, I really love the song. Where can I find this? Where can I find it? So I said, Spotify, Apple Music, all these places. Go and listen to it. So he shows up the next day, he comes back to the house and he says, I found that version and I love it. I love the Indus Creed version, but where can I find that version you played last night? Just simple acoustic. I said, well, it's not really there. And that has been, to answer your question, that was pretty much the culmination of these requests that I decided to pay attention to and put into action. Since I had started working on the EP sometime last year, I said, let me pay heed, let me answer this request, and here's an opportunity to do it. So I spoke to Arya Nanji, who's produced and arranged all the songs on the EP, and has done a fantastic, and also played guitar and sung on it. And I told her, okay, come on, let's go to the studio and let's try this version. Just me with an acoustic guitar, and just like I would sing it in the living rooms, I'll whistle the melody, pa 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 pa. I wouldn't whistle, and I'll sing the rest of the song. And I found I was very dissatisfied with that version. And I kept, whatever we tried doing, I'd keep going back to the same way. It just sounded like me doing this bare bones acoustic version of a song that I've done in this way with Indus Creed. So I said, it's not working. I said, I'm going to hand over to you. I said, you're the producer, arranger. I'm falling back into habit. And this was very much part of the reason why I brought Arya on board as a producer of my music as well. She's a lot younger than me, which is part of the reason why I thought it'd be a really good idea, because she comes in with a whole new set of influences, but she's also old school in many ways. So we have a lot of common references going back to the 60s and 70s, because she loved a lot of the folk music coming out of that age, Dylan and James Taylor and Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell and all that kind of stuff. But she's very much a today kid, and she's production savvy, she's a wonderful musician, she's harmonically savvy. And I said, I want someone who's going to come and challenge the way I would produce my music, because I know that I will go back into the same methods and practices and habits, especially the habits and patterns that I've honed over the years, but I don't want to do it that way. So I said, great, Arya, Fireflies is yours. Do what you will with it, make it your own. I want to hear your version of it. So the new version, when she came up with it, I was just floored with it, because the harmonies she had written, she made a couple of chord changes, a couple of harmonic changes, very gentle, very subtle things. But it's those subtleties, a little break where we didn't break in the Indus Creed version, a non-break where we broke in the Indus Creed version. And she wasn't doing it just for the sake of it. It just felt absolutely natural to do the things that she was suggesting. And for me, it gave a whole new lease of life to the song, and brought a new burst of oxygen into the lungs of the song, and a new energy, a new gentle energy into the song, with these beautiful harmonies that she's written and sung with Sharad and Zion. And yeah, that's how Fireflies came to be. And when I finally heard her mix of it, I told her, I said, Arya, I said, you know what? You've transformed the song in the ways that I'm so satisfied as well as gratified with.
Wow, I am so stoked to hear that. It kind of feels like dressing your baby in a new set of clothes and giving the baby a new haircut that you're not sure it will work when it's happening, but when it happens and it works, you're like, wow,
Well
this I
said,
see
well
this
said.
in a
Yeah,
whole new light now.
yeah, yeah. That's beautifully said. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you know, when you were telling me the story about how you basically handed over Fireflies to be reinterpreted. It got me thinking, like a lot of artists tend to be possessive about their songs. Like, I have written it this way, so it has to be this way. I can't imagine it any other way. Have you ever been possessive like that about any of your music or your songs, and like reluctant to have it reinterpreted or changed?
Very much so. So, especially to the early years, and this has all been part of the wonderful experience and the challenging experience of life and the journey of being a musician, songwriter, band member. I say band member because then you are working equally with equal voting rights of other people who have equal say in whatever you're working on. And when you're young and immature, like I was young and immature at that time in those early days, I would have a possessiveness about the song, and if someone suggested an idea that I didn't like, I mean, I would fight and I would sulk. And yeah, Mark Selvin, our bass player and founder of the band, actually, and he was kind of like the guy who was leading the band for many, many years. He would look at me, he would call me little, he would say, oh, he'd call me Piggy, Piggy sulking again. So I was very much that guy who would fight and I'm not getting it my way and stuff. Over time, the beauty about life is, as much as we think life is hard, I think life is actually really very kind because life gives us really a form of tough love that we are resisting. It's tough love. What makes the love tough is our resistance to it. And the more we resist it, I'm only speaking about me and my experience, obviously. I can't speak for anyone else. And through every challenge, through every hurdle, through every obstacle, I realized that life was only trying to guide me in a direction that was better for me. And every time I felt beaten or I felt exhausted and knackered or depressed or in despair, it was because of my resistance to the path that was actually right for me. And every time I'd give in to the path, and when I say give in to the flow of life itself, uh, things would actually be better. I'd feel better. Things would move more smoothly. And I've understood that in the process of songwriting as well. That the ideas of other people who I've chosen to collaborate with, if I'm choosing to collaborate with, it's in my own interest at least to hear them out. And not just hear them out, even if it's an idea that I would instinctively be and automatically in a knee-jerk fashion be resistant to. Say, you know what, listen, at least listen. I can still reject it. I can still not accept it, rather, if I still feel it doesn't fit into the song. But how can I come to that judgment unless I actually give it a chance of finding its way into the song? And so over time, I've had to learn that I'm choosing to collaborate with people. It's in my own interest and in the interest of what I'm trying to create to accept the collaborations that they're bringing to this relationship. And that's really how it's been over the years. So more and more, it's working far more, ironic to say, but far more harmonically and harmoniously with my bandmates or with my collaborators. And it was certainly that experience with this EP with Human Bee, because even in the process of putting the songs together, what Arya suggested, which I thought was a great idea, she brought in this band. She brought in Mitch on drums and Sharad on guitar. I'd met Sharad before, but I'd never played with him. I'd never really heard him playing guitar live in the room where I was present. I'd heard the stuff he'd done with Easy Wanderlings, this wonderful band he's a part of. Zion, I'd never heard and never heard any of the stuff he'd done, never met him. He's a young keyboard player who plays with a wonderful young musician called, she goes by the name Dot. Dot in the syllables is what she calls herself. Uh,
Oh, I have seen her
Aditi?
live loads of
Yeah,
times, and I want her on this show also. So Aditi, in
yeah.
case you're listening, come on in.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
So I'd heard that Zion had done a lot of stuff with Aditi or Dot, and but I'd never heard his stuff. Mitch I knew because Mitch is the son of a friend of mine who's in the entertainment business. But I never really heard Mitch playing drums. And I brought in Johan Coutinho initially. Johan plays bass with us in Indus Creed. Johan is now not playing with me in the solo project because he got very busy with other stuff, and Adil Karwa has come in. Wonderful because Adil's a beautiful bass player who was playing with Indus Creed before Johan joined, and then Adil got busy. So it's kind of like full circling in certain ways. But what we did is we went into the studio, and for the first time, usually what I would do is, even with Indus Creed, I would sit at home and if I have a new song idea, and a lot of the Evolved songs work this way. I programmed the drums, not that I expected Jer to play what I programmed, but just to give an idea, an energetic idea. I'd put in some guitar parts onto the thing. I'd do a scratch vocal, to convey the energy of the song and the kind of rhythm and the kind of syncopation I'm looking for, and then we'll do it collaboratively after that. And I would very often I'd work that way, but which means I was putting a lot of the ideas down in advance. Uh, and of course, the other guys in the band would come and change a lot of the stuff, but they'd get a basic starting point. With the EP, it worked very differently. For one, when I was sending the songs to Arya, we decided that I would literally just sit with my phone. I'd put on the voice note recorder, my acoustic guitar, nothing fancy, not even a professional microphone, just put that on and sing my song and send it to her. So that she's completely unencumbered by any other ideas that I might have, so that she can think absolutely fresh. And we did it that way with crafting the songs, and each of the musicians bring in, especially with Human Bee and Afar. We went into the studio, into Island City Studios in Bombay, wonderful studio, and all of us sat in the room, and for 2.5 days, we just played the songs over and over and over again. And I said, I am not going to tell anybody what to do. If someone plays something that I really don't like or I think is really counter to the song, I will speak up. But until then, I just want to hear what they all put in. And the idea is that because they're all fabulous musicians, they're all fabulous creators in and of themselves. And I said, if I keep instructing ideas, I hear this melody, I hear this part, I want you to do this, I'm just directing the entire thing and making it again my ideas and my ways, which I don't want to do with this. Uh, I want to hear what they bring to it. So Sharad would bring in his guitar ideas, which are beautiful. Zion brought in these wonderful ideas. Everyone, Johan, because it was the rehearsal and recording process. Mitch on drums as well. Arya, absolutely, who was playing the producer and arranger and listening to everyone while collaborating and contributing her own stuff. And it was a really beautiful, I found it a really wonderful way to work because I loved what they were bringing to the songs. And I learned from them by the end of the process that they really enjoyed the process because they told me that they enjoyed the process of being able to be free themselves as musicians and not really keep thinking about will he like this and will he not like this? Or should I play what do you think? What do you think? Because I don't want to play any kind of ego card here, but there can be a bit of apprehension when somebody like me who's been doing this for so many years, it's been like what, 40 years plus that I've been doing this professionally. And when I'm with people who are in their 20s and early 30s, there can be a bit of apprehension, a bit of intimidation. There can be, based on perception, in terms of, okay, this guy's come, he's been around for a long time, so, I've got to let me do what he wants me to do. And I wanted to dispel any such notions or any such ideas because I don't like that environment. I love being cool and free. I love to hang with my bandmates. As my buddy Jay Rao Kavi, my dear buddy, who I met just yesterday, and we meet pretty often because he lives close to me here in Goa, which I'm so happy about. And as he and I were talking about, as much as important as it is to be making music with really really wonderful musicians, it's as important to be able to hang with them and hang out with them after the gig is over or before the gig is begun. So I want to create that environment with whoever I'm playing. I want to keep it easy and simple. Listen, eventually we're all human beings. We've got to get along with each other. And I see the beauty in you. I see the beauty in your music. I want to discover the beauty within you as in your within your own nature. And hopefully you can see something within me that is not obviously visible. So you have to get to know me. And I think a great way to do that is to create music together and make it free for everyone and keep a free environment. Say, bring yourself, put yourself into the song. It's not just your ideas, it's your emotions, it's your personality, it's your nature, it's your essence. And woo time again, I really believe that all music, because music is energy. Let's get down to science. Science will back that up. It's all energy, finally, it's all vibration at least. It's frequency, it's low frequency, it's high frequency, it's mid frequency. It's a whole gamut of bandwidth, right? We are that too. Science will back that up too. Even us as material beings, we are forms of vibration. We're just not accidents, we're all quirks and almost manipulations of vibration, but agreed manipulations of vibration because form is vibration at different speeds, right? So we agree a table is a table. Even a scientist will tell you that there is more space between the atoms and electrons and stuff than there are those atoms and electrons themselves, and yet it has solidity to it. In the same way as human beings, we are that. And I believe all forms of art, all creations, are imbued with the energy and the vibration of the people who were involved in the creation of that art. And I believe a song for me is very much that, because it's so much about emotion, and it's not just intellectualism, it's very much about feeling, and it's very much about heart. And I believe each of these songs contains the feeling and the heart and the intellect of all the musicians who played on them. So that was my whole experience putting these songs together and being in the studio and being in the studio with these individuals and these musicians and wanting to create an environment that's conducive to their own inner peace and their own inner sense of safety so that they can be the musicians that they aspire to be and I can be the musician I aspire to be, and we can do it together and have some fun.
Hey, thank you so much for listening right up until the end of the first half of my amazing conversation with Uday Benegal. If you liked this conversation, then please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and press the hype button if you're on YouTube, and follow and rate this podcast on the other platforms of your choice. Part 2 of my conversation is going to come out very soon, and I can't wait for all of you to listen to it. See you around.